And Maria's going to talk about how their company developed the roadmap for IT/OT. So that all ties into these current activities that are going on. And this is somebody from industry that's going to talk about this. Maria's got a great background. She actually, I hired her at Exxon, but she also became the Chief Information Officer for British Petroleum US. Then later on was a Gartner partner, and then she moved on into kind of the marine area and engineering. And so she was a past vice president of another marine company, and then maritime company, and now she's over ocean engineering. So I think it'll be interesting to get industry's perspective on some of this stuff. So we're trying to actively pursue topics that you all have said you're interested in, and IT/OT was one of those big ones, of course. And then AI is what we're going to cover today, the impact of AI on the current and the future cybersecurity workforce. So the rapid advancement of AI intelligence is reshaping the field of cybersecurity, introducing both opportunities and challenges for the workforce. Dr. Sands, John has been he's a co-PI and a leadership team member for the National Cybersecurity Training and Education Center. We're a national ATE NSF center, and John will provide a comprehensive analysis of the impact of AI on the current and the future cybersecurity workforce, focusing on evolving landscape of technologies, workforce needs, and strategies to prepare cybersecurity professionals for emerging demands. So he's done a lot of analysis. It's based on his experience and several recently published studies and articles addressing the impact of AI in cybersecurity workforce. So I'm going to turn it over to John, and thank you again for this presentation.
All right, thank you, Stephen. All right. So, by the way, the report that we did, I believe it's up on the NCyTE website. So I don't know if anyone knows exactly where it's up on there, but maybe we could post the link to it. If not, I can. I think I might even have a copy on my system. I might be able to just put it in chat. So, but we did an analysis of where we think this is going in the next couple of years, and you know, I think it's a nice report that gives cybersecurity educators some vision into the type of things we're going to be needing to look at, and the types of things we're going to need to incorporate within our classrooms. If we're not doing it now, we need to do it in the very near future. So, all right. So I'll go ahead and share my. Are you going to do the PowerPoint, or should I navigate it? Should I share it?
Yes, please, because I don't have. Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let me share my screen.
By the way, everyone, we have so whenever we put John's name on a workshop, it fills up all the time. So at my college now, I just put his name on all my classes so that they fill up.
All right. So which screen are you seeing of mine? Let's see if it's working here. And I'll bring up the PowerPoint, put it in presentation mode. I think I picked the right screen. You see the PowerPoint presentation?
No, we see you, John.
Now we see your background.
All right. Let's see. Let me switch screens. There we go. I think it's that one, right? Is that the right one?
Yes.
All right. All right. Always fighting with technology here. Okay. So I just want to start by saying, we're really in an exciting time right now. I joke with Mike and other colleagues from NCyTE that we offer a lot of the faculty development courses through NCyTE. But I have to say, myself, and I know many other faculty members, there's a new excitement about teaching right now with the emergence of AI. And I always talk about that, I've gone through like 3 or 4 of these major transitions during my career or during my life. I mean, when I was in high school, we used slide rules and tables to look up things to do math, and the calculator came out. And, it was going to be the end of the world as far as math teachers were concerned, that everyone would now cheat and no one would ever learn how to use math again. And then when I started at Moraine, we had this, new idea to have a computer maintenance program. And by the way, when I started there, we had no computers to do maintenance on. So we actually had to buy the parts and build the computers and so on. But we had no idea where that would lead to and how those devices would be used in every discipline and basically every aspect of the college, as well as, every aspect of work today. The real power of both of those devices or those technologies was really in the applications. And it's the same as AI. The real power is going to be, how do we come up with these innovative and powerful ways to use these technologies? And then my first National Science Foundation grant, believe it or not, 1997, I got a grant from the National Science Foundation to go around the country. I wrote a book and to teach community college teachers how to use this scary thing called the internet, right? So that was an experience. And, I got to go and visit 27 different cities or whatever. And we taught teachers how to use the different technologies that were associated with the internet, never having any idea of how that technology was going to transform really everything that we did. Everything as far as, I can't even imagine teaching my classes anymore without having internet access and the services and so on that we have now with internet. And then this is really, I would say, my fourth major transition. I mean, there's been other things like the advances in wireless technology. I've found that to be very interesting over the years. And we've done a lot with IoT. But I really have to say, this is probably the most exciting transition of really any technology in my lifetime. This is really going to transform the way we do everything. And that includes cybersecurity. So just to give you some foundation of this, I'm working with a DoD contractor. We're doing a small project where we're working with the Navy on looking at their cybersecurity task groups and how they are integrating AI in their day-to-day work, right? When we started this, and by the way, we only started this project like a year ago, all right? We had 4 products that they were using AI generative data. And really none of them were AI powered, right? So we had 4 products. So the task group basically said, take these 4 products, let's break it down into 25 different tasks that we would do with these products. And what we want you to basically do is look at, what does a person using these products have to know about AI, and how reliable is it? How do they validate the results and the data that they're using? And then sort of define what skills they would need and how to set up training for them in the future in using these tools. Well, just in the year that we worked on this project, the 4 products that we initially started working on, they've sort of said, okay, we don't need to worry about these anymore because there's 40 products out there now, right? So there's 40 different products they're using across almost every aspect of cybersecurity. And where we were finding the data generated from many of these products had significant issues. About 10% of the data, I would say, was untrustworthy, had to be validated, and so on. Now that number is down far less than 1%. So the improvement in just 1 year is just almost unbelievable. And the number of products now that are deploying and integrating AI in it is really going to transform our field. So, in the near future, if not now, I would say cybersecurity and AI are one of the same. I don't know how we're going to be able to teach cybersecurity without teaching AI right next to it and having students understand how it works, how it's integrated into our products, and how it increases our ability to defend our infrastructures, our systems, things like that. So just to give you some foundation. And then what I like to do, I'm going to go through this PowerPoint with you, but I would like to show you how we can use it in the classroom to teach some of these things. and then how we can turn around and actually use it to teach students how to use AI in the workplace. So those are some of the things that I think we really need to start integrating into our programs. And if you're interested, we're offering 2 workshops I think might have real interest to you. One is that we are doing an impact of AI in education, and we're doing that with teachers across the board, not just cybersecurity, but how to use AI in the teaching and learning process. And I'll be honest, I think it aligns exactly to what we're talking about here, because it's the same kind of things we're going to be showing in those workshops are the same types of things we want to be teaching our students and using AI in the future workforce. So, and then the second one is, we've taught a CMMC workshop over the last 2 years when we've had pretty good turnout, and I think we've trained over 300 faculty members on what CMMC is and so on. But the new version, I think you're going to want to sit through. If you sat through the original CMMC workshop, I think you may want to come back and sit through the version 2, because now we're going to take it to the next level, and we're going to show you how to implement CMMC, and then how you can use AI in helping you with the implementation. And I'll show you a couple of the things that we're going to cover in that class at the end of this workshop. All right. So that's where we are with that. All right. I think most people have seen the crazy expenses and investment in AI over the last 2 or 3 years. It's just really sort of crazy. Just in 2024 alone, the cybersecurity market, as far as integrating AI, they're estimating $25.3 billion was invested. And I can really see it when you look at the number of products that are out there now that are AI powered. It is just overwhelming. It's just about every product that you touch today. They are now going to integrate AI, even in education. So we're not going to be able to avoid this. So for those of you who think we can push this to the side and avoid it, you're not going to have that option. There are just announcements that some of the major course information management systems or information are going to integrate some of the AI tools into them, like Canvas. So in the near future, Canvas will have AI integrated right into the product as far as generating tests and other things. But you can see the projected growth is pretty significant. So if you're not looking at how you can integrate AI into your program now, you really should be. You can see 2025, there's a pretty substantial increase in the expenditures. And the compound annual growth rate is 24.1%, which is pretty significant. So if you carry that out to 2034, it's forecasted that around 220 billion will be invested in AI integration into the cyber workforce and in cyber products. All right, so get some of the statistics out of the way. So what are these products and what are we doing with it? And why is AI so critical? All right. Well, we can still go back to the data breaches. We have not really seen a slowdown in our data breaches. Over 8 billion records were breached in 2023 across 2,800 incidents. So it's a pretty significant space that still needs to be protected. And AI is going to enable us to do a better job at that. And I think most people understand that these things are getting more costly as we go on. So just a rise in the cost of those data breaches, they've increased 15-20% over the last 3 years. So part of what we are doing is integrating AI, because the attacks that we are facing and the types of threats that we face, many of them are AI powered, but they are becoming much more sophisticated and complex. And we need AI to really give us that continuous monitoring and continuous decision-making capabilities, and to make us more versatile and able to react to these things much faster. And that's where we're seeing the real investment in AI. The other thing is AI adoption confidence. I can tell you about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, people in cybersecurity were really poo-pooing, can we really trust these products? Can we trust the AI generated data? Can we trust its decision-making capabilities and so on? Well, I think if you used any AI over the last year, you will see that its trustworthiness has increased dramatically, and that's really shown itself in the confidence that people now have. So about 95% of cybersecurity professionals believe that adopting AI cybersecurity tools will strengthen their security posture, driving this market. And that's up markedly. It was under 50% just a couple of years ago. People really didn't feel they could trust the data generated, the decision making, so on. Well, now we are seeing that these models truly can be trained and are really intelligent as far as their ability to assist our cybersecurity workforce. So some of the areas that we are seeing major investments in cybersecurity related tools. The first one I would say would be security information and event management, sort of the overall management of our cybersecurity countermeasures and efforts. But these platforms collect, process, analyze data from various network sources, including firewalls, intrusion detection systems, endpoints, applications, servers, so on. And AI enhanced SIEM solutions continuously monitor users and identity behavior to uncover deviations from typical patterns that signal potential threats. So they can do this in real time now. I have a colleague that worked for one of the major providers of cloud-based wireless solutions. And we can literally start to track users on our network from the point of initial entrance and start to build a portfolio of that individuals and their actions and so on. So now we can start to do things like predict, are these individuals a threat to the organizations? Do we need to change things like our access control dynamically, by the way, and AI is now able to do that. But it can also be other things. It can be, I mean, we're using it in retail now to continuously monitor stock and product movement within the organization. If there's higher threats of theft and things like that. But the point is, it's given us real-time data and continuous monitoring that would be so costly if that was the workforce that had to do that manually. So those are the big things. And, you know, as far as, you know, product leaders in this space, there's 10 major products that are out there, but everything from Sentinel to Splunk, Datadog. We're starting to implement some of these in our CMMC, our collegiate cyber defense competitions. And we're also looking at how we can incorporate these in some of our classes now. But many of these products now have really high-end AI integration in their ability to monitor and manage our systems. And again, I think the real power of this, I don't know if many of you have watched some of the demonstrations of what they're able to do, but now we can do things like when someone fires up a device on our systems, our wireless technology working with our AI, we can literally tell where that person is. In many cases, just by the device and they're powering up, we can tell who they are, what they're working on, things like that. And we can do things like dynamically change our authentication capabilities and then our access control and so on. But we can have all of those technologies now under one umbrella, and AI can actually be used to manage it. So, you know, we find someone's a threat to certain things, we might move them to a different network segment and so on. And we can do that dynamically now just by building that profile and having AI study their behavior, study things that they're looking for. You know, before we might have done things like, you know, done surveys and so on to determine what access control they're going to get. Now we can start to do those things just dynamically and in the background. Many of them don't even have an idea of that we change those things. Okay. But it falls down into real-time threat detection and correlation. So it can do those across multiple technologies, behavioral analytics, and advanced baselining. Tying this to endpoint security and to wireless today is unbelievable, the power that we now have with that. So, I mean, you literally can watch people and I don't know if you've seen where they have AI actually reconstruct who's there and so on based on the behavior analytics that it's picked up. And then AI generated integration for incident analysis. That's really what it enables us to be, is be much more nimble and be able to react faster, and actually make changes in our reactions and so on at a speed and rate that we just couldn't do in the past. And the other major area is security orchestration, automation, and response. And this is tying all the way across from our IT to OT. This can literally be used to mimic what the organization's operations are and how to automate many of the things that we need to do if we detect anomalies or so on. But it's basically enabling us to combine incident response and business continuity planning all in one and automate those processes. So instead of having specific individuals performing each of these different tasks, now we're going to start to see agents that can actually do that. We're going to see agents that can do everything from contacting legal services to reconfiguring devices. And this isn't something in the future. These capabilities are now there. And I can tell you, just in a year that we looked at some of these products and the little project I'm working on, the configuration and the integration of agents has changed dramatically, and it's become much easier as far as the steps to perform those tasks. The other major area would be endpoint detection and response and extended detection and response. So AI-powered solutions combine advanced analytics across the network with our endpoints all the way through our cloud environments. And they can be used in everything from detection to investigation to response. So these systems are now integrating each one of those things and have individual agents and so on that are building those. And the real beauty of these technologies now, one of the things that we're finding in the project I'm working on is in the first generation of these projects, we had to go in and teach it everything about our organization, right? We had to teach it, what are the goals of the organization? What do we produce? What are the critical operations and so on? A lot of the new technologies, the agents can actually collect and analyze and do a better job at defining those things than we could in the past. So we're now using AI agents and AI to actually train some of these systems to get a more accurate picture of what we do, how we do it, when we do it, so on. And that can be everything from day-to-day operations to maintenance, upgrades, to our response to different types of threats. And that can also incorporate all the changes. So, new products that we bring in and so on. The intelligence that some of these products bring now, it's just mind blowing. So where we talked about, part of what our job was to define, okay, what would the machine do and what would the humans do? There's a huge shift, right? However, I will tell you one thing, we still need those humans that have some of the expertise to validate some of these things, to enable next steps and so on. So it's going to be absolutely critical that the workforce of the future, that our students understand, AI, how AI is integrated into these products. And I think we're really going to have to start to teach how to use agents and configure agents to do things within our classes, because they're going to expect those types of skill levels for students leaving our programs in the near future. Again, this is probably one of the bigger areas. I sat through a presentation from my colleague that was demonstrating some of these technologies, but a lot of these are cloud-based, incorporating everything from the wireless technologies that we use to connect these devices and users through the reaction and countermeasures. All right. But just some of the high-level types of things, insider threat detection, so identifying malicious insiders' credentials based on attack by monitoring user behavior. Again, from point zero, when that user now comes into an organization, these technologies can start to now build a profile of that individual and determine, normal behavior versus unusual behavior, what their tasks are, what groups they belong to, and then ultimately, what do we need to give them access to, and when do we need to take steps to prevent those. Zero-day implementation. So support zero-day trust security models by continuously validating users' authenticity based on behavioral patterns rather than just statistical credentials. And again, it ties back to, in real life, wireless is actually now becoming a much more secure technology because it lets us build that profile, right? We can build what kind of device they're connecting on, right? Where are they? Where do they move during the day? Things like that, right? Which devices are they using if they're using multiple devices and so on? Are they spinning up VPNs and things that we need to be cautious of? So, and then advanced threat detection. So recognizing subtle indicators of advanced persistent threats that bypass traditional security controls, even integrating into our email systems and our communication systems. So, and the thing with each of these, they are adding a much higher level of complexity. So in the future, our cybersecurity individuals aren't going to have to worry as much about individual configurations and deployment of things, but rather how do you create and configure these agents to do the work for you, right? Because they know how to do the configuration, but you need to know where and how do you deploy these technologies. All right. And then network security and zero trust solutions. We talk about AI powered zero trust solutions, strengthening security by implementing continuous monitoring, real-time threat analysis, and dynamic access control. So all of these things are now available and are integrated into our systems. And you can just see here some examples of some of the products that are out there that are doing some of these things. And the next area would be threat intelligence and hunting platforms. So there's a whole group of now products out there that help us after an incident response and a profile of who the threat is. And the beauty is in the past, like one of the things that I'm on our governance committee at the college. And one of the issues that we had, like when we wanted to deploy IDS, we initially deployed IDS with internal people, right? But then we found it was too costly and that there was a real advantage of contracting that service outside. Why? Well, because if we contract it outside, that organization that's monitoring our IDS systems is monitoring hundreds of other IDS systems. So they know at real time a vision of what's happening in the threat space, right? So if we're experiencing some type of attacks or whatever, there's a good chance that other organizations that they're contracted with are also. So it gives them an early warning system, and it also gives them advanced knowledge that our individual people in-house would not have, right? Well, that's now changing, right? So that's no longer going to be a reason to contract this out. You can contract this in-house, and the agents can literally now talk to each other and have back-end databases that they can monitor the threat space across a multitude of different organizations, right? So we don't necessarily have to have those technicians outside the organization that are monitoring those things. Now our systems can track and have real-time intelligence of what's happening in other organizations and be able to predict, okay, what were the steps that they've seen, what were the signatures they've seen, and have an idea of what types of threats are posed to our organization based on our sensors and our systems. All right, so that's another major area. And then this has been the key of what we've been asked to do is to identify, okay, what technologies and what skills do we need to start integrating into our, and by the way, I'm at a 2-year college. So I'm talking about this from a 2-year technical college perspective. But what types of skills do we need our students to leave with? I'm hearing a lot of, chatter out there that students don't need to know how to do programming anymore. And I would tell you, I don't believe that. All right. I do believe that they don't necessarily need to sit and code to things. They don't need to sit and type out all the syntax, right? But they still need to understand how a program works and the elements of programming and so on, right? And companies are still going to look for that, even though we may have AI generate or help generate different products and things like agent spinoffs and APIs and so on. I still believe that our students have to have a foundational understanding of programming. All right. They're going to need more information on statistical analysis. They're still going to need the same types of foundational skills of how networking works, basic types of threats. They're still going to have that foundational cybersecurity skills, but now they're going to need to know how to use AI to help them create tools and other types of things like dashboards and other things to help them monitor what's happening within the network. And we'll show you some examples of that live. I'm going to demonstrate some of them right after this next slide. All right. So do I believe students need to leave with a knowledge of AI? I definitely think they need to leave with a knowledge of AI. I think they need to understand how they can use it and how they can deploy it safely and how they can use it efficiently and effectively. And we are now going to build that into multiple classes. So we're not just going to have an AI class. We are going to teach AI across multiple classes. So we're going to teach it from everything from our introductory to networking and hardware courses all the way through our cybersecurity management courses. And we'll show you some examples of that here in a second. All right. And then this is just some of the just the dollars that prove the point that there's major investments in this space. And if we are going to keep providing the workforce with the expertise that they need, we are going to have to change the way we teach things and incorporate some of these technologies in the classes that we teach. And these might be some of the products that you look at. We do have classes at NCyTE that are incorporating some of these products and that we teach in our current courses. So, if you're looking for some courses, we currently have a couple of Microsoft Azure courses that are offered, and we'll be offering a couple others. So let me go and jump into some live demonstration of some of these things.
John, you had a couple questions in chat, just or comments.
What are the questions? Let's see.
One it was around the open source models, and I'm not sure which slide that was on, but Scott, you could come off mute and ask a question.
I was specifically interested in seeing if there's any open source models for, I guess, for features for like detection and classification of cybersecurity threats. I think that was basically what you were talking about. Because I don't know of any, and I was just curious about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say rather than open models, I think what most of them are using are public frameworks. So a lot of them are using like the nice frameworks that define things like incident response and so on, right? And as far as open source ones out there, I couldn't give you specific ones. I'm not working with any open source ones on the project that we're working with, and I don't know if anyone else would want to answer that question. But specifically on the things that we're working with, we're really not working with open source right now.
Well, you could use Security Onion as an open source, and that is it has a SIEM, IPS, IDS, has many modules in it. So that would be, it doesn't have a SOAR. There's no security orchestration automation response, but it does have everything else that you need. It's just, it's got the ELK stack and many things if you want to have some type of free platform to use.
Okay, so basically I could potentially create an agent and then have it use the Security Onion as the basis of the tools that it would use to do those sort of things.
Well, I don't know about the agent. I would have to look into the agent. I'm just saying if you want a free thing that does, monitoring of your network, Security Onion is a network monitoring that would be used in something like a SOC. And it has many different modules in it. You could probably make an AI agent that then integrates with that, but I've never done so.
Okay. Well, for me personally, as far as like things like Security Onion, I've used was previously, so maybe that might be an additional avenue for something similar.
Okay, we'll let John continue on. It was a comment from Costas too about automatic launch of countermeasures based on AI without human intervention could lead to problems. Have you considered that?
Yes, we have considered. That's what we're working on in the project we're working with is what does that human intervention look like? How costly is it? How trustworthy is the current data that we're basing those actions on? And how do we validate that data? All those things are skills that we are going to have to start teaching in our programs. However, I can tell you there's been massive improvements just in 1 year in all of those areas that we've looked at. Are we going to come to a point where we just have hands off? I think legally we're not going to be able to do that, right? Is it going to take the level of analysis that it did in the early days? I don't think so. I think that the data is much more trustworthy, and that there are aspects and there are going to be very specific things that we need to look at. But I can say that the systems are improving. But your point is absolutely correct that, we still are going to need human intervention. I don't care how good these systems are, we're going to need human intervention. Right. Okay. So, most of us have probably taken our CMMC course or are familiar with it, but let me just show you what we've been working on with the CMMC course. So in CMMC, we basically, the first course, we introduced what it's all about, what the framework looks like, and so on. What we want to do in the next iteration of this course is actually help organizations and then help teachers in classrooms actually build tools to show the types of tasks and the types of products that are required for CMMC now. So let me just show you one part of this just to give you an idea. These are all different areas that we're working on and will be available from the class. But if we go in and look at just the documents and the reports that are necessary to go through the CMMC process today, take a look at this. These are what are required. Okay, to go for the full level 3 designation or certification, right? If we look at level 1, we only have two documents that are absolutely required. And we go to level 2, it increases, and then level 3, you need all of them, right? But what we're trying to do in the class now is actually show you how to build some of these things with AI, and then have AI and humans work together to actually build some of these reports. So, like one of the first things you have to do for level 1 CMMC is you have to go through and do an asset inventory and categorization report, right? And it might look something like this. Okay, and by the way, this is totally AI generated. Now you could go out and buy a commercial tool that does this, or you could just build your own with AI and AI agents that will enable you to build everything from the dashboard to the database itself, right? And they do spell out within the designation what the requirements are and so on. But we can start to go in now and actually start to build this database, right? And by the way, this is totally editable, so I could go in and edit anything in here. I could go in and add new devices, but I think we want to show students in our classes how it starts. So the start of the process is that we have to go in and identify what are the assets within the organization and how do we track them and how do we build them into a database so that AI tools can be used in helping us protect these assets, right? So in our new class, we'll show you how to build this for yourself. So you can take ours, or you can just build this for yourself. We created this for a fictitious company called Acme Technology Service Corporation, right? And we started with a little profile or whatever, but then we went in and used AI to actually build this entire interface in this tool that we can then use agents with and so on to help us now protect our assets. But if you take a look, it breaks them down based on the nice framework and the CMMC requirements. So the first thing we have to do is go in and identify our CUI assets. Everyone knows what CUI is, right? Everyone knows CUI? Controlled Unclassified Information. That's what the CMMC program is all about, and FCI, right? So we can go in. The very first thing we would need to do is identify what are those things that we're trying to protect. What is the data that we are trying to protect? And we can go in and actually build a database for these. Now you could define, these are the things that you absolutely have to have for CMMC, right? You're going to have an asset ID. You're going to want to name that asset. We want to know what type of asset it is, where it's located. What is the CUI data type that we're protecting here? So what are we actually protecting? Things like who are the primary users. And then we're going to want to track our compliance status, right? But we can go in and actually add these. So we get a new contract as a contractor that now is going to have new CUI associated with it. We can go in and now actually start to add those things to this database. And now this database can be used by AI to help us make other decisions. So it's going to know now what are those assets when we start to talk about our maintenance program, we start to talk about our incident response and so on. We now have this information fully defined and now available to AI and helping us make decisions. Then we might want to go down and we have to take a look at our security protection assets. So what are the systems and the technologies that we're using, that we're deploying to protect, in this case, our CUI, right? And again, we want to categorize these. We're going to give them asset numbers and we're going to give it names and types and so on, right? And then we're going to want to track the compliance of these. And then we can get down and we can start to talk about contractor risk management assets. So what types of assets are we responsible for that we have subcontractors that we have to manage, right? Or services that we are subcontracting to. And we are going to want to build those into a database. And then specialized assets that we may want to include in this process, right? And we define each of these. And by the way, all of this comes from the CUI documentation. So when you build this tool, they give you basically the things that you need. So there really is no reason nowadays you have to go out and get a commercial tool to build this. You can build this yourself and now have within your systems, you can have your own agents be able to monitor, real-time monitor this information and make decisions based on it. Okay. And then we can go on, we have out of scope assets that we've added to this as well. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can see a fairly substantial tool that you can build, with most AI models today. I think I use Claude to actually build this. And it's for training purpose, but an organization could use this then in tracking their inventory, right? So this could be something you definitely could teach within your class, right? So you have a Security Plus class, Information Security Management class. One of the things you might want to do is take a framework like this and actually show students how to build a basic dashboard, and then how to build a database that can be continuously monitored and then integrated into your AI infrastructure. All right. Could you please provide an example of how an integrated AI into my network classes? Yeah. So in our AI course, we walk you through that process. Okay. Let me jump to that real quick. So let me go ahead and jump to that. So if you are interested, that's a great question, by the way. And if you're interested in that, here is the class that we offer a 2-day hands-on in-person class that we walk you through the process of how to build those things. Now, I'm not going to go through the whole class, but we go into, what is AI and the foundations of it and so on. But that's not the focus of the class. The real focus of the class is, how do I use AI to build content and to help me in the teaching and learning process in my individual class, right? So that would be under our instructional design portion. So in here, we'll show you how to use AI to help you build.
Hey, John.
Hey, John.
We're still looking at your CMMC.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, thank you. I'm terrible at doing that. Let me move it over. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So here's the class itself. And one of the specific modules that we talk about is actually doing exactly what you asked, is we are going to build content within our classes. And the beauty of using AI to do this, by the way, is it's just really consistent and everything ties together. So to answer your question is, there's more than just one step of how do you do this? There's a whole process. So I would say you start off by building your syllabus, right? So you take your existing syllabus and you train AI on that syllabus, right? And then you say, okay, these are how many lessons I'm going to teach within this class based on the syllabus, right? So you start to go in and build individual lesson plans. Okay, so here we start to go in and actually build an individual lesson plan. And by the way, I just didn't tell AI, go and build this lesson plan for me, right? I gave it my syllabus and I gave it a prompt like this. So this is an example for a business class, right? But we've got tons of examples for a cybersecurity course. But you have to give a very succinct details of what you want to teach and how you want to teach it, and what are the concepts and key terms that you want to tie into this, skills that you want to build, competencies that you want to build within it, right? And then you have it go in and actually start to build the lesson, right? So here's an example of a lesson I built. And I'll show you one of my class that I actually use that builds my lesson plan. Now, I also might want it to build something for my students along that line. So I might want a detailed outline for the students, right? So if I'm going to have a lesson plan for me to teach the course, I also want them to have a detailed outline that they can follow as I go through this and to build their notes and so on. And they have an idea what we're going to do. And here we walk you through this in the class, what it's for, how it's used, and actually an example of a prompt that you can use to build a detailed outline within the lesson. So again, this is for one lesson, right? Then what I want to go from there? Well, now we start to really build the meat of what we're looking for. So now we might want to actually build a study guide, right? Or well, I could build a presentation. So I'm going to build my presentation. So if I want to use PowerPoint or I want to use other types of things, I could have AI help me build this presentation so it's going to align exactly to that outline and exactly to my lesson plan and exactly back to my syllabus, right? From there, I might want to create graphical instructional materials. And there's tons of stuff that you can create in AI to enhance your class. Look at these things. These are the things that you could build. And here's some examples, right? But you could build everything from mind maps to illustrations, timelines, maps, diagrams, so on, right? These would be things that you could actually use AI to help you build within your class. Here's some examples. Now we're teaching multidiscipline, so it's not just going to be cybersecurity stuff here, but I might want a chart that shows all the USB interfaces. I don't need a textbook anymore to do that. In fact, I can design it the way I want it, right? Periodic table. If I wanted, whatever, you get the idea of the things that you could actually build as instructional content for that class, right? And then we get to actually building a study guide for the class. So let me show you the results of something like this. So here I'm teaching a digital electronics class. I could show you the Security Plus, but I didn't have that one set up here. But here's a digital electronics class, right? So I have the detailed outline, right? And then from there, I had AI help me build the study guide. I don't need a textbook anymore. AI can help me build. Look at what I can build with AI now within this course. So of course I can tie all of these things back to the syllabus. So what kinds of concepts and terms and stuff do they have to know at this point in the program and in this class, right? I can have it build diagrams. We've already talked about that. I can have it build illustrations, symbols. All of this stuff can be AI generated easily, right? Now I can get all the way up and start to build circuits, right? And I can even get to the point where if I'm using different instruments, I can have it teach those instruments, as well as I can
John,
actually.
are you showing this on the screen, or we're just seeing the?
Yes, sorry. Terrible jumping around there. So here's the study guide. Sorry about that. All right.
We have about 3 minutes, but we can go over. So,
okay.
But
here's what a study guide might look like that you could generate with AI, right? And it's based on the outline that I generated and the lesson plan. So they're all been built with AI, so everything perfectly aligns, right? But here's things that they need to know. Goes back to your syllabus, right? It can build circuits, illustrations, icons, right? Symbols, right? All the way to the circuits themselves. And I can even get down to this part, and I can actually have it start to learn the tools I'm using. So you might recognize this is Tinkercad, but I can actually teach it the symbols and devices in Tinkercad and actually have it build labs for me. So this is just electronics, but you could do the same thing with this in your cybersecurity courses. In fact, in one of them we'll use Security Plus is how you can use AI to help you build a class like this in Security Plus. Okay, and then from there you can actually build all the activities and assessments. So I could go in and I could build the labs now. So from this one, I could go in and actually build the lab. So here's the lab. Oh no, that's the exam. I could build the exam, by the way, also. But then I can build the lab. So here's the lab, and it directly aligns to my lesson plan and the things that I taught in the class. And now they're going to go through and have to build these things. And the real beauty of this, believe it or not, I can actually upload this, create a rubric, right? A grading rubric. So here's what I want the person to learn doing this lab, right? Here are the things that I want them to be able to identify and solve and so on, right? And now what I can have them do is when they upload that lab, I can actually have AI help me grade that assignment and give me some feedback on how that student is doing, so I can give them better and individual feedback on each lab that they do. I can even have it go through all the exam results and tell me what are do everything from item analysis to were there patterns of how people incorrectly answered things and so on, right? But AI can really transform the way we're teaching, in any of these topics, all right? But that's how you could incorporate some of these things in your classes. Yeah.
So John, Mike put the survey link in there if you all will click on that link and fill out the survey. But the other thing is, I'm just curious. So, of course, you're using AI, and it does save a lot of time. But to develop one class, just give us a kind of an estimate how much of your time, or whoever developed this, how much time does it take to do this? I know from me working on the CSET tool and integrating AI into that, it took some time to get all that worked out, and some of it was trial and error, and of course assessing the validity and is this really right? So just a kind of a ballpark, what do you think?
It depends how skilled you are with AI. So I hate that as an answer.
I took your class and that helped me.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you go through, like what we're doing in the class, we're breaking up in groups and teaching you how to use it to do different things, right? And it takes practice to get good at those things. But I can tell you, our digital electronics class, I'm a department chair. Our person that taught that class retired. And I looked at the class and it was a mess. I couldn't, with good conscience, hand that over to a new faculty member or an adjunct faculty member, right? So I said, you know what, I'm going to rebuild this class using AI, right? And it took me about 2 weeks to rebuild this class. And by the way, we're covering probably 40% more, right, in the class, just because everything is so unified. If you're using AI from top to bottom in building things, everything, and I can tell you, I've had feedback from students also. I didn't even show you like part of what we can do in there. I mean, in my in my study guide, I can have a podcast, and the podcaster can literally go through and teach the study guide, right? So those are the kind of things. And by the way, it's interactive. You could stop it and ask questions that as part of the class. So it's a hard they give you a specific time frame, but I can tell you, I built this entire class in about 2 weeks, and I wasn't working 8 hours a day. I was working an hour or two. And Mike and Yuri, if you want to jump in, how long did it take us to do? I mean, you've seen, I just redid the CMMC course, right? What did it take? 4 days, maybe 3 days. So, and the whole thing is, I'm not starting from scratch. I'm taking the class that was there and I'm making it better, right? So, yeah,
this is great.
But if you're interested, we would love to have you sit through the workshop. Part of what we ask you to do is bring your syllabus, bring your class, bring your class that you want to do this in. You're doing ethical hacking or something like that. Bring those in, and we can start by teaching you one lesson and have you build one lesson and all the things out here in one lesson. Once you have one lesson down, then you can go to the next one, and then once you finish all your lessons, you can go to the next class, right? But that's the idea behind it.
Okay. Thank you, John. This was really informative.
I get a little carried away. I'm a little enthusiastic about this, but I really think it's transforming the way we can teach things.
Well, it does. You know, when you were talking about the other use of AI and all that, I was thinking, and you were talking about well, like even for the CMMC where you're developing the asset, all that. I was thinking of course, I do a lot of concentration on risk assessments and whatnot, but you could actually have an interactive real-time risk assessment going on with AI.
Exactly.
I mean, so look at how much time that would save for companies, because I know from my own experience how much time was spent in doing risk assessments at ExxonMobil. So you basically have all this on a real-time basis. It's amazing.
Yeah, and one of the things Mike's even done as part of our CMMC course is he built a chatbot, and that chatbot can literally act like an auditor. So now you have a class with an auditor in a class going through, let's say you're teaching firewalls or whatever, right? But you could actually now have them ask questions and be able to answer questions and so on with an actual auditor in the class. That's reinforcing the types of things that you're teaching. You know?
Oh, fantastic. Okay, well, is there any questions from anybody else? I know we're over, but
Yes,
this is a great topic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi. I could put it in chat, but can this be done online? Can we learn this stuff? Do you teach any of this stuff online?
We teach the advanced class online. We don't teach the basic class online, only because part of the value of the class is sitting down with other teachers and actually, helping you build your content and learning from each other on how to do those things. And it's really hard to replicate that online. We're going to offer some later this year online, and we can let you know about that. But so far we've done them all in person. And I just felt, in this area, there was such an advantage of bringing people together and working together on this, that part of the problem we have in online is people are coming and leaving constantly, and you couldn't actually finish a whole task. In these classes, you can actually finish an entire lesson with all the things you might want to do within that lesson, because you're spending 2 days with no interruptions, with other faculty members and with people coming by helping you build things.
Yeah, I got a question too, John.
Yeah.
So I don't really have, as you said, there's no doubt that these tools is really getting accurate. I think it's really interesting. And also the way you show, and I think it's really related to what we learn in class for fellowship. But my question, I think that you wasn't also my touch is how the ethics way of, like, if you create all these resource and put all these prompts that make really amazing things for you, but what is ethics behind that one? It's like, I don't know, when the people make the image or anything, they used to use the of course there is skill, but there's the tools, like let's say Adobe Shop, and we know we pay for it, and then we got the tool, we create our image.
All right. But, I got your gist of it. So let me answer. Like, we get this question every class. Every class you get this question. So here's the way I answer it. Okay. I've written textbooks. I've written textbooks. I've written other types of books and so on. Are you telling me that the authors of those textbooks were the original? That those ideas, they were the originator of them? So when they're teaching, they're writing a Security Plus book, they came up with those original ideas for everything, right? In fact, I can tell you what the publishers would tell me when I'm writing a textbook. Go and find a diagram from another textbook that's what you want to show, and we'll have our guys rewrite it. And basically, that is exactly what AI is doing. You basically tell AI, I want to create this diagram, right? And you have to just, and the better you describe it, the better it's going to come out, right? But it's your idea, and it's coming up with the design itself. So I understand the whole ethics part of this, and and I know publishers are really scared of this, because it really is a threat to publishers. It's a threat to artists and things like that. But it's a tool that's here, and it's not going to go away. And I can tell you, there's been other transformative technologies that came in its past that had the same type of disruption to different industries. And this is going to be the same way. I mean, my thing is, though, you should own it. What I mean by that is that you need to give it enough detail that it is your ideas and how you want to present that information and build whatever it is you want to build, right? So, but I mean, those pictures I showed you, I had it build. I wasn't the originator of all the USB interface types, right? But I knew that I'd like to be able to show my students all the different interfaces. So create me an illustration that shows all those illustrations. That's my idea, and then it can carry it out for me. I hope that answers it. So,
yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think that's really legitimate. I mean, the right way to. One time I was saying, "Oh, I want to do the research, and then I want to do this kind of stuff," and my professor say, whatever you do, there's no idea that you're going to do just from your mind, because you have to reference something that already out there, and then it's really match exactly what you're saying. So there's no.
Even like this tool that I showed you, the assessment tool, you could go out and tell AI, create me an assessment tool. You're not going to get this. You're not going to even come close to getting this. It takes a lot of work to planning what specifically do you want, how do you want to use it, and what do you want it to look like? And all of those things, you have to have that knowledge to do, And by the way, you're not going to get what you want the first time. I mean, some of these have taken us 10, 15 tries, and some things we just had to build certain parts and change other parts, So.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, there might be one in the chat. Let's see here.
Yeah, let me pull my chat up here.
If we develop detailed class using AI, can we allow students to solve assignments, exams with AI tools?
Great question. What you need to do, in my opinion, is you have to have an AI policy, right? So in the way I describe it is that every activity I do in class, I'm going to have three options. I'm either going to say, you can use AI, unlimited, however you want to use it, although I may want to see what you've done, right? I may say you can use it limited to do certain things. And then I might say, you can't use AI at all. This one, I want to see you solve this problem. I want to see you build this thing, whatever it is, right? So that needs to be spelled out in a policy. And then there needs to be some thought process in there. And it might even require you to change the way you do things, right? So anyone give me, what would be an example of where you wouldn't want them to use AI at all?
Final exam.
Yeah, maybe a final exam. Yeah. First essay, someone said. Yeah. Okay. So there might be, and you need to set those rules. You need to say, I want you to do this. You're not using AI to do it. But I'm going to tell you, I want my students to know how to use AI. So I am going to encourage them to use it for different, what might be an example where I'm going to let them totally use AI the way they want to use it. But I want to see what they did. I want to see their prompts. Okay. Someone said a report. Yeah. Yeah. I would say probably a report.
I was going to say discussion board assignments.
Discussion board assignments, it depends. I would probably want some control over that, because I don't want them using the discussion board to answer a response from someone else, unless someone is saying, can you look this up? And then you're going to use AI to do it. But there I might want to have some controls how they use AI. You get the difference? So in other words, I don't want AI answering the question in a discussion board for that student, right? However, while they're in a discussion and they're talking about a solution to something, then I might say, okay, what does AI say how you would solve this? Yeah, that would be fine, right? Would there be an example where you might have restrictions on how they use AI?
Maybe certain labs.
Yeah, certain labs, you can use it for certain aspects of this, right? But that's the answer to that one. It's more complicated than, do I let them use it or do I not let them use it? You can be wrong at one end and saying they can use it for everything. I think that's absolute craziness, right? Or you could be at the other end that says you can't use it at all. Well, then I think you're doing your students a real disservice, because they're not going to know how to use AI when they leave your program. So I don't think you want to be at either side of that extreme. You need to be in the middle somewhere, and you need to think about how that would work. And it's not that easy. I mean, we're going to struggle with this. I mean, we've struggled with other technologies too. So.
Okay. I think I don't see any other questions in the chat. No, anyone else want to ask a question before we let John go? And really, this has been a great
yeah. So John, you
presentation.
say you guys offered the class, right? Is it like any way that we can virtually took that class, the one you guys teach how to?
Yeah, we're going to be offering one in August. That'll be online. So yes, you can, and we'll it'll be on NCyTE's website. So we've had multiple people ask for it. But I mean, I can tell you, I purposely we've done 12 classes now, have done them in person. I mean, some of you have attended these. I mean, did anyone want to make a comment that you think it might have been better by doing it in person? I mean, I've seen people in the audience that have been in our AI course. So I don't know if anyone would want to make a comment on it, but.
Okay, so it's listed under the event and workshop.
Yeah, it's under events. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You can also sign up for the NCyTE newsletter and join NCyTE, so that would help you get all the activities that are going on, like that for John's workshops, as well as other workshops that NCyTE's sponsoring and developing.
We are doing a 2-day workshop right after NCyTE. So if anyone wanted to stay Thursday and Friday, you could still get in that class, but we're offering a 2-day class right after NCyTE.
Okay,
I took John's class last week at Maryland. It was awesome.
Great.
And John, if I can, Stephen, you offered something similar to our UK counterparts, right?
Yes.
Recently, we have Philip Virgo still on the line from London. He's tuned in to listen to you. You might want to reflect on their thirst for knowledge and learning on this dimension too.
Yeah, we had some interesting, and we have 2 other people to taught the class, Mike and Yara here as well. But I think it was good to bring faculty from a different perspective, different country, and so on, to talk about how they're dealing with some of these issues, how they're incorporating it. Right. I think it's really important that we learn from each other in activities like that. There's been multiple examples I can tell you in teaching these classes. Every class that we've gone to, and I would say Yuri and Mike and other people that have taught this class, I think we've learned something every class that we taught, because different people had different perspectives and let's say problems they're trying to solve. And that was an example of something in our class with the group from Europe. There were some problems that we were like, oh yeah, let's try to solve that problem and see if we can come up with a dashboard or a simulator or whatever that does this.
So Philip, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I was simply going to say that the reason I'm sitting in and have sat in is that looking at how to try to get the academic world to use processes that we're beginning to see large corporates do to train hundreds, perhaps thousands in a cyber workforce globally. One can see how the corporates are doing it, but how to actually get those disciplines which you've described across a rather more disparate community in the UK than you have in NCyTE. So, very useful. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip, for those comments. Okay, we're going to let John go, and we'll see you all next month. We have another AI with Dr. Vincent Nestler, and about how it impacts the based off the NICE framework and the work roles there. So again,
hope to see you at NCyTE.
Okay, yeah, we'll see you at NCyTE.
Great job, John. Really
Thank
enjoyed
you.
it.
Great.
Great job,
Thank you.
John.